Welcome to this week's episode of the Remy Podcast, TRP. I am Remy, and I am here with the once and future king, Ruben. Welcome back.
What am I a king of?
You are the king of probably the 7-line or Mets fans or Mr. Met or God forbid Gritty or something.
I think there's a lot of people that need to die before that happens.
So what is the order of succession amongst Mets fans?
Yeah, we'll after we figure out Game of Thrones, we'll go to that.
That'll be the next thing is, I mean, who would, Oscar the Grouch? I mean, who wants to be the king of garbage, right?
This is off to a rousing start.
It's always good when you have the this crosstown exchange, right?
Too bad we're sitting next to each other.
He is reaching under the table, and it's a little uncomfortable.
Get on with it. Let's go.
All right. So we avoided talking about this last week because we needed Ruben's stellar insight. He is sitting here wearing his Mets hat, so he does have his thinking cap on, so to speak. So the first topic, something we wanted to touch on, and we will get to Bryce Harper. Obviously, that is the crown jewel of the segments tonight. We will get to all the signings and extensions and all that goodness, but we are going to start out with a topic near and dear to Ruben. That is Jacob DeGrom. And on Valentine's Day, something that may not have, not necessarily broken the Mets' hearts, but basically his comments were reported by Mike Puma of the New York Post that he might be looking to reduce his workload this year, that he wants to, look out for himself, for his family, a decision he wants to have with his agents. And workload reduction is a tactic of CAA agent Jeff Berry, and kind of developed because due to the slow free agency for the past 2 years, looking for ways to kind of limit the wear and tear on pitchers, especially pitchers over 30. So we know that Jacob kind of wants a deal done before opening day. I guess this is kind of timeline. What do you feel about those comments? And I know you want DeGrom to stay a Met, and he does want to be a Met. He does love the Mets, and he loves being in New York. But how does that make you feel?
So I can understand 100% where he's coming from, and we're living in an age where free agency or impending free agency is a critical factor in how you preserve yourself until you get guaranteed money. So if you think NBA right now, people are sitting people left and right until it's critical playoff time, or in the case of the Pelicans, they're sitting Anthony Davis because he says he's going to leave as a free agent for sure in 2 years. So they think they're going to trade him in the offseason, so they're limiting it his playing time because they're trying to guarantee the return because there's nothing guaranteed right now. So I understand their perspective. I think it's a little different, however, when you're on the field. How do you slow yourself down? So the other thing to think about is Zion Williamson. He's a Duke. They said, should you shut him down? Or should he shut himself down until he gets an NBA contract and he makes some money? I get the thought. But when he's ready to play, I don't think he's going to shut himself down. So it hurts as a fan to say that somebody's not going to give their 100% or may not be available 100% of the time. But when push comes to shove, the actual execution doesn't always occur as we think. So Anthony Davis wants to play, but his organization doesn't let him play. So that's one thing. But if it was up to him, he would play. Zion Williamson, will he take himself out? Probably not. He'll play when he's ready. And when Jacob's ready to go every fifth day, unless there's an honest-to-God dead arm or something along those lines, which he did miss a start or two last year because of that issue, I think he'll be out there every fifth day. And pay the damn man.
They should pay him. And baseball is kind of a unique animal, and I agree with you that once he's out there, and I do think the Mets will be, maybe they won't make the playoffs, but they'll at least be in the picture or in contention.
Yeah.
My only argument, and I totally get his agent's perspective. I understand preserving your client and making sure that he's going to get that guaranteed payday.
Yep.
But if you're Jacob DeGrom and you keep repeating performances, if you have another year like you've been putting up, you're going to actually do yourself better and make yourself worth more. Teams are not going to, especially for pitchers, like that level of quality starting pitcher, the more you can go out there and prove yourself and put up those like video game numbers, you're adding to your bankroll. You're adding to your total.
Well, but the counter argument, if you're Mets management, is the more he does that, which it looks like he will probably, based on what he did last year, and actually today he looked like Jacob DeGrom. He went 3 innings, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts. So the Mets are actually it's better for them to sign him now. Now, I know you're trying to predict, or you're trying to give yourself the grace period. Could something happen that could negatively affect the guaranteed dollars that are in baseball? But it's a roll of the dice there.
It is, but I mean, he's telling your ownership, lock me up to a good deal.
Yeah.
He's begging you for it, and he's ridiculous. There isn't really a detriment, especially if you can find something that's fair to DeGrom and that's friendly to you.
Yeah, well, and with modern-day medicine, with modern-day workout regimens, with the ability to understand how an athlete's body performs at its peak nowadays as compared to even 20 years ago, I mean, you have pitchers that are going to be 35, 36 years old before they show severe signs of regression, especially if they have good mechanics, repeatable mechanics. And the crazy thing about DeGrom is that even 3 years ago when he was a stud, or 4 years ago when he was the Rookie of the Year, his velocity has actually increased because his mechanics have improved. His performance is optimal. So if I were the Mets right now, I wouldn't take the risk of having to pay guaranteed above and beyond or closer to what would be competitive market value when you could lock them up now with no competition.
Yeah, I think you're ridiculous if you let him go. Are you worried though that Mets ownership is not going to, pony up the requested funds and that he's going to hit the free agent market?
Well, you got 2 years of him right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I'm. It's spread coupons. Of course I'm worried about that. But yeah, I think look at Nolan.
Arenado. We will actually be looking at Nolan.
No, I'm sure we will. So I don't want. Well, let's call this a look into the future.
Yeah.
A guy who his guaranteed. Well, we'll get to it.
We're gonna get to that. I promise you.
But they're taking care of their players. They're
Yes.
taking care of their franchise, which is the way it should be done. Because you don't want to root for hired guns or mercenaries all the time. It's okay to have a mercenary, but have something that you created, that you invested in, that you saw when you got them when they were an 8-week-old puppy. And you saw them peeing in the corner of the house, and now they scratch at the door or go through the dog door and pee outside.
I don't know what you want Jacob DeGrom to do, but this sounds like the wrong show for that.
I want him to pee on. What?
Well, I'm horrified. We're gonna just jump right into. So we were bringing up the extensions and signings, and we're gonna start now traveling on the number 4 train to my side of the city.
Okay.
We're gonna go to Aaron Hicks' extension. Aaron Hicks is 29 years old, center fielder for the New York Yankees. In 2017, he had a 3.9 WAR over 88 games. He was unfortunately injured. He was injured again in 2018, but did 4.7 WAR over 137 games. That was second on the Yankees, only to Aaron Judge, who was worth 5.5. He hit 248 last year, 27 bombs, 79 RBIs. He has a cannon for an arm. He had a 366 on-base percentage, which was good for 10th in the American League. Yeah. His extension is good for 7 years. It's $70 million with an option, a team option by the Yankees for an 8th year, should they be so inclined to do so. He is a career about 236 hitter, which is a little concerning, but has improved obviously dramatically since coming to the Bronx. He's a switch hitter. Like we said, cannon for our arm. I think he's registered the fastest throw from the outfield to the infield in Major League Baseball. I think he had a 105-mile-an-hour strike. I don't think that was last year. I think that was the year before. As a Yankees fan, I just want to talk about for a second. I love the deal. $10 million for that type of production for a guy who's a good personality to have on the team. He's a good leader. He's a good athlete. Sure, there's some injury concerns, which is probably why Aaron's getting that kind of money that he is getting. You don't want him to turn into Jacoby Ellsbury Part 2. But just for comparison, and maybe not a fair comparison, you look at the deal this past offseason that Andrew McCutchen signed with the Phillies. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to go another outfielder known for defense, although I would say Kutch's defense, it's regressed a fair amount. But the numbers-wise, Kutch last year had a 255 average and put up 20 bombs. He's not the overall player that Aaron Hicks is, but I thought the similarities in terms of the power output, the defensive notoriety or former defensive notoriety, and the average is about on par. And so he signed a 3-year deal for $50 million. So you're looking at about $16 million a year versus $10 million a year for Aaron Hicks, and if you're looking at those numbers, and I realize the Phillies with the stupid money could throw whatever at him or whatever you want to say, but that's a great deal. Even if Hicks regresses in the last year or two of that deal, or even 3, that is a great deal for I'm not going to say a top 3 outfielder, but he's one of the better center fielders in the game. I think he's extremely undervalued, and it's crazy because everybody always says, oh, every Yankee is overvalued, and the Yankees overvalue their players and their fans overvalue them. But $10 million a year for the quality Aaron Hicks is going to give you a switch hitter, great defense, and I know maybe ultimate zone rating and things like that are a bit unkind to him, but he's a solid player. He's not one of your stars, but he's the type of role player teams need to go to the playoffs and do well.
Absolutely. A 7-8 hole hitter, somebody you can put in the lineup and can trust at the back end of your lineup. Or maybe 6 hole. I don't know.
Lead off.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think Aaron Hicks is.
Well, I guess with the OBP that you talked about, right?
Yeah.
What was it? The 30.
366 was on base percentage because he does walk. He's got a good eye.
Yeah.
He's got a patient bat. He didn't always necessarily have that. But there's some sometimes he is put 4th or 5th to kind of break up, especially maybe this year. He might be in the middle of the lineup because we're predominantly right-handed.
Sure.
But he has lineup flexibility too. He can hit a home run. He can get on base. He can steal bases. He's a very versatile player. So $10 million a year for the next 7 years looks pretty good on that.
And what'd you say? He had 247 with 27 bombs.
What did I just say? He had 248. So you're
248. So if he had 249 with 34 bombs like Bryce Harper, maybe you guys could have paid about $13 million more or $16 million more a year for him.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So just saying, that it sounds like a pretty good deal. Not that I'm comparing the two, but I just compared the two.
He just compared the two. But I know the more exciting extension, and we are almost getting to Bryce Harper. I absolutely promise. And then
that was another tease.
Ruben is a gigantic tease. Ask anyone. You alluded to him earlier, and that is that of Nolan Arenado, who signed that 8-year, $260 million extension, annual average being, what is that? 30? Is that 32.5, 37.5? My math skills are deteriorated, and you can blame technology for that. I wrote it. I did write it down, but I can't read my own handwriting because I scribble. It is $32.5 million a year. So he does have he has the second highest annual average of all time, behind that of Zach Greinke, who had the $34.4 million annual average on that D-backs deal. So second highest. He's got a no trade clause. He wants to be a leader on the team. He's got his heart in Colorado. He wanted to be a one team player for his career, citing some examples like Todd Helton and Derek Jeter with the Yankees. In 2018, he was good for a 5.6 WAR. He had 38 home runs, a 297 average in his career. He's about a 40 home run or thereabouts kind of guy. 346 on base percentage, 291 average. So he gets his hits. He hits with power. Defensively, I think he's one of, if not the best third baseman in all of baseball. I can't say enough good things about this deal. I think that's great when a player wants to stay with a team, especially a team like the Rockies, and that's not a knock on them. I just mean, they go through a lot of different players. The thin air there is good for batters. Pitchers fear it, but it's great to have a one-team player. I love seeing something like that. Yeah. Ruben?
What we were talking about earlier, you want to see your kids from the beginning to the end. It's part of branding your franchise, that you take care of those who are your own and you'll augment eventually. But to take care of your own, because fans want to root for a known product. They want to get behind. You have the more emotional attachment. What a great deal. There's nothing to look down upon. You hit on it. The guy's the best third baseman in baseball defensively. It could be arguable. In my opinion, it's not. He's a clubhouse. He's a good clubhouse presence. How old is he? 26 maybe? I don't know. Somewhere in that range. He's young. He wants to play for you. He puts up numbers. His splits aren't the greatest, Coors Field versus everywhere else, but they're not awful. His power numbers are still there. I think he hit. I think his splits were 15 homers on the road as opposed to 25 or so at home. So that's still good for a 30 home run season, but his average was down on the road. But he wants to be there. You're taking care of your guys, and it's a good way to brand yourself, just like San Diego branded themselves in not re-signing somebody of their own, but going out and getting Manny Machado. You're telling your fan base, we're invested in our future. We're invested in putting a good product on the field, and the Mets keep saying otherwise. So
I'm sorry you had to draw that comparison to your team. But now to get to the not necessarily main event, so to speak, but what's been driving the other half of this podcast. We got Manny signed, and now where was Bryce Harper going to end up? He ends up with the Phillies. So last week Matt called him signing with the Phillies. I thought he was going to sign with a West Coast team. Signed for 13 years, $330 million, good for a little bit over a $25 million annual average. He's got the 14th highest annual average. He wanted the highest guaranteed rate. His agent Scott Boras said, he just wanted something that was definitive. He wanted something that would be long term. He didn't want to go through free agency. Family was important to him, so knowing where he was going to be, he didn't want to move around anymore. And he really likes how he hits in that ballpark. And that was something we did discuss last week was, he can be a West Coast guy, but your bat might die out there. Yeah. He definitely is a more lively bat in the
bandbox.
In the bandbox, in the city of brotherly love, showing him some love. We look at also, there were a lot of different final offers. The Giants did offer him a $310 million contract. I think that was over 12 years, as reported by Alex Pavlov of NBC Sports Bay Area. And then John Morosi of the MLB Network reported the Dodgers offered him a 4-year, $168 million deal, which would have given him a $42 million annual average. And then Bob Nightingale, USA Today, said he also got a 3-year, $135 million deal from the Dodgers, good for a $45 million annual average. So he could have been the highest annual average player in the history of baseball.
It's cool. Here's the weirdest thing. For me, it's a weird deal. I get that, he passed Giancarlo Stanton as the most guaranteed money in the history of baseball. But why would it's so hard because we can't act like we know Bryce, and we don't know Bryce's wife. Some of us don't.
That's horrible.
But anyhow, we don't know him. We don't. We're not his friends. Does he have friends?
He's got friends. I think Chris Bryant on the Cubs, if Matt was here, would throw that out as his friend.
But so we don't know what the pull was for 13 years longevity, which is crazy. I mean, I was practically in high school. That's not true. Sad. But why would you not bank on yourself for $45 million annual salary? Because I heard the Dodgers. You said it was 42. I heard it was 4 years, $45 million.
We listed both.
Somebody was offering $45 million a year. You said the Giants.
Dodgers.
Oh, the Dodgers?
Yeah, the Dodgers
for 4 years.
Yeah, the Dodgers offered him. I'll go back there for a second. They offered him a 3-year, $135 million deal, which would have been the $45 million.
That's the Dodgers.
Yes.
Okay.
And they also offered him a 4-year, $168 million deal,
$42 million
which
a
is
year.
Right. The Giants offered him the 12-year, $310 deal.
Got it.
Yeah.
So here's the crazy thing. Why wouldn't you bank on yourself? I mean, 3 years. So he's making, I think, average annual value right now of $25 million. I believe his signing bonus was $20 million, and he makes $10 million this year. Then every other year, or every year until the last couple years of his contract, is $24 million or so, and then or $25 million a year, and then it
dips down to like 22,
something like that.
Yeah.
But how do you not bank on yourself? So if he's making, let's say he's making the 30 this year with a $20 million signing bonus, then he gets another 25 and another 25. That's 30. That's 55, 65, 75. That's $80 million, as opposed to the $135 million or the $168 million that you were talking about. There's such a spread there. How do you not bank on yourself?
Because it's like Scott Boras said, it was important to him to get the longest deal done so he didn't have to do free agency or move around or subject his family to anything else again.
Okay,
that was important.
That's why I'm removing myself from the personal aspect. I don't know him. I don't know his decision-making process, what he thinks about friends and family and school systems, Mike Hampton. And, so I'm removing myself from that, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And honestly, if I'm Philadelphia ownership, I kind of say, yeah, we got our guy. But man, he's leaving, over the next 3 years, $50 million on the table or whatever the difference was. And he's not banking on himself, because I would bank on myself, man.
He did not want any opt-outs in the deal.
I know, I heard
he's
about
got
that.
He's got a no trade clause. He wants to stay there.
Well, and
he picked a team he wants to stay.
I heard that the perception was earlier that he didn't want to be there because of how notorious Philly fans are.
I had heard that as well.
So I heard that. And I wonder if this is his way of placating them, saying, no, look, I do want to be there.
Until they pelt you with batteries.
Well, what I was going to say is that's only good for a little while. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt. He wants to be one of us. But man, if a struggle goes into July, forget about any goodwill that you built up in that city. I mean,
the fanatic and gritty will show up at his door with butcher knives, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a horrible visual that I just created. But then look at this team that they've built around him. And Harper is in a great situation. You traded for JT Realmuto. You got Gene Segura. You traded for him, so you got another great guy there. You granted, we talked about his decline, but Andrew McCutchen's going to be in the outfield with him. You got David Robertson, who I am super familiar with, is going to be he should be their closer. I mean, you have a great team. Starting pitching is still.
You got Rhys Hoskins too.
Well, you obviously you have him, but I'm just saying who they have acquired and picked up to put out there, and they gave Nola that extension.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Hoskins is another phenomenal young talent that he gets to, by signing Kutch, they got to move him back to first base where he's a little more comfortable. You've put together that. It's as close to a sure thing, I think, in the NL East as possible. The Braves are still going to be hyper competitive. The Nationals are still a great team. Getting Corbin helps their rotation.
I think that the NL East is the most competitive, on paper, the most competitive division in baseball to start the year. So we'll see.
Would you say that more? Would you say that more than the NL Central?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, I think you have. So before the signing, one of the baseball prediction Picotas, I don't know what it was, had the Nationals projected at about 89 wins, and before the Bryce Harper move, they had the Mets projected at 87 and 75 for a final record, and that was just above the Phillies.
I would have gone way under that. Way under that.
Well, we'll see. I think there's a lot of improvements there. I mean, I've given them a hard time, and hearing that the Phillies signed Nola to an extension also makes me grit my teeth and.
Probably DeGrom loves seeing that. But there's still, so I do kind of want to, not to use this phrase, but I do want to backdoor this kind of into what's left out there. And we're talking about pitching, and that's what sparked me to kind of want to move this to our last segment here.
Okay.
And it's, so what's left? So the biggest two names, Machado, Harper, are off the board. Mm-hmm. So we now know the last two big names really, or biggest, are going to be Dallas Keuchel as your starting pitcher and the elusive Craig Kimbrell as a closer. And people are wondering, because both of those guys do actually still make sense for the Phillies. Mm-hmm. MLB.com's Todd Zalicki said that they're not really a possibility for the Phillies unless they would consider them short term. I mean, if you're looking at resumes right now, Keuchel went 12-11 last year, 3.74 ERA over 34 starts. He's had 2 All-Star appearances. He's the 2015 Cy Young Award winner, 4 Gold Gloves, and a World Series championship under his belt. I mean, that's a good ad, and I made the argument. I know you weren't here for it last week. I thought that should be the next move for the Padres.
Okay. Keuchel?
Yeah. I mean, he's not an ace. He can play up to it, but he's a 2 or a 3 in my opinion, and he still would be better than anybody. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on the Padres rotation, but we looked at the numbers there. None of those guys are anchoring a World Series winning staff.
Yeah.
So he still makes sense to me for the Phillies, and I know MLB.com saying that short term, sure, why not? And so it could happen, but if you're the Padres, I think that's somebody that would look real good as a get. And then looking at Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell's kind of a weird story. So last year he did go 5-1, 42 saves, a 2.74 ERA. He had 96 strikeouts over 62 and a third innings, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But CBS Sports' Jim Bowden was saying that Kimbrel might just sit out 2019 if he doesn't get a $100 million plus deal. His agent, David Meter, who is not Derek Jeter wearing a mustache or something Valentine-esque, said that is an inaccurate report. But I don't know. I mean, Kimbrel would help anybody that adds him, but just watching him in the AL East and watching him in the playoffs, yeah, he is the best closer currently in the game, and that arguably, I'll throw arguably in there, but he doesn't still strike that X factor to me. He doesn't have that Mariano Rivera factor. Here this guy comes, it is over. Like when he got in there against the Yankees in the ALDS, we were still scoring runs off this guy. I mean, he came an inch away from a Gary Sanchez grand slam that would have really made the series a lot more interesting. He can want whatever he wants. If somebody wants to give it to him, the same thing with Machado and Harper. I didn't think that they were worth the deals that they got, but they got them. Yeah. Somebody gives him that money, more power to him. But I don't know. I think that may be a case if somebody's not paying a closer that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean it's such a crapshoot. I mean his numbers last year, the peripherals are stunning. 62 innings pitched, 96 strikeouts with a whip of 0.995. Yeah. I mean, the peripherals are there. He gives up 4.5 hits per 9 last year, 4.3 hits the year before, 4.8 hits per 9 the year before, about 1 home run per 9 innings pitched, 13.9 strikeouts per 9. So the peripherals are there. He might have been snake bitten. I mean, his ERA was upwards of 2.74 last year. The year before is stunning at 1.43. But the peripherals are there. So it's certainly somebody who could take a winning team and certainly lock down the 9th inning and make take you from good to great, or in San Diego's case, maybe from average to
competent.
Well, with our farm system, let's see. You never know how young talent's going to play out. But I'm a big believer. You let young talent learn and grow with some veteran presence. And they, Florida, the Marlins, unbelievably have done it twice. Winning World Series with, after completely tearing down teams. And
they haven't done it in a long, long time though, since 2003.
the Mets haven't won a World Series since '86. So.
Yes, but it's the Mets.
Yeah, but. All right, so back to the point. A truly, truly terrific player, arguably the best closer in baseball, Edwin Diaz. But I think, people don't want to pay that kind of money for closer because the relieving market is such a crapshoot.
Do you think, and this is the biggest question that I want to ask, because I do believe his agent saying that's inaccurate, but do you believe Craig Kimbrel would sit 2019 out?
No, you can't. You got to get what you can, when you can, while you can, unless you're a 26-year-old Davion Bell in football. You cannot waste years of being an incredible reliever sitting out. You just don't know what could happen to your body because you're presuming that you're going to be working out all offseason, and pitching is one of those things that, I mean, if you're working on your conditioning in the offseason, you could just as likely tear something, in your workouts as you could during a game or during the regular season. You cannot give up that kind of. You're losing leverage by giving up a year, in my opinion, because nobody knows what you are anymore.
Well, it's not like he's going to go venture over to the Nippon Ham Fighters or something.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, where are you going to sit out and make $500,000 overseas, while you're trying to work on a $20 million annual average or whatever it is that he's seeking.
$30 million a year for the Rakuten Golden Eagles. No, he's not going to do
30 million yen.
That's true.
Yeah,
but
what is that good or bad?
I don't know. As we've established this show, Jeremy no good at the numbers.
Oh, hey, you were no good at you did
math.
That. But you did that with grammar, like Jeremy no good. That was like, okay.
Yeah, I see where we're playing this one.
Yeah.
But we'll see where they end up, and hopefully they'll sign somewhere, and we can pontificate over their decisions next week's show. But this is a good place to wrap it up. Thank everybody for listening to our inane ramblings about Yankees and Mets and these free agents and extensions and all that golden goodness. So hopefully next week's show, like we said, we could talk about Kimbrel a little bit, talk about maybe where Keuchel landed up. We'll be further into spring training. We'll be closer to getting everything underway, which is extremely exciting.
Woo, we could talk about real baseball at that point.
Oh my goodness, that's what I'm most excited about.
I can't wait till the Mets win the first game of the first season, and I'm all excited.
You know, like that Family Guy meme where Stewie's sitting at Shea, and then I'm so excited for the Mets season, and then you hear the crack of the bat, and it's over.
Yeah, but that wasn't opening day though, because they win on opening day. I mean, they started 11-1 last year.
They were on fire.
Did you hear how high pitched my voice went there?
Ruben's getting very excited.
It'll come talk to me in May. It'll be over.
Yeah, well, May 1st, we'll see if Ruben's still smiling.
I'll have a bushy beard, and I'll be drinking in here.
You're drinking here now.
Well, more heavily.
More heavily.
Yeah,
very
actually, like straight liquor.
That's all right.
Out of the bottle. Right now, I'm it's in a cup.
Keep it that way. Keep it in a cup. All right. Thank you all very much for listening to this week's show. And as always be a fan.